call is now being recorded.
Hi, Austin.
Hello, Aya.
Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Not a problem at all. I always like to carve out time for you because you're definitely one of the best people I've ever worked with, and I love working with you on anything we can, so looking forward to this.
Okay, very good. So, rumor has it that you're considering running for Clara McCaskill's Senate seat in 2018. Have you decided definitely?
I have not decided definitely, but I will be making that decision. I've set a deadline for myself to decide this coming June. So if I decide to do it, we'll know by then.
Okay, and what sort of criteria are you using to decide or not?
Well, to see if there's any interest, really. I know that the libertarian community is really excited about it, but I wonder just how much the citizens of Missouri have, an interest in someone who could be, who represents the values that I have of limited government. I think that there's probably a lot of interest for it, but I really want to spend some time doing a little bit of traveling around my state and finding out just how interested people might be.
Okay. Well, I think they are very interested, but are you going to be running as a libertarian, a Republican, an independent, or a member of some other party?
Well, what's funny is I actually got a phone call from a new party the other day, the Federalist Party, who are interested in having me, they're interested in having me run on their line. I know the Libertarians would absolutely love to have me do it. The Republicans have reached out to me as well. I don't know if you all know the Republican Liberty Caucus, but they're courting me as well. And man, if the Democrats do the same thing, maybe I could just run on all the party lines.
Is that allowed?
No, I don't think so. But and I wouldn't want that just because I think that's not good for democracy. Everybody should have a little bit of competition, but I just haven't made a decision yet.
Okay. Are you disappointed in the Libertarian Party after coming in second in the race for the presidential nomination in 2016?
I think I'm disappointed. I won't lie and say that I'm not. I think that the problem lies with the misunderstanding of libertarians of what the general public really wants in candidates. I was much more popular with Muggles than I was with the libertarians. The problem is that we so frequently try and determine what it is that the average voter wants, but we always get it wrong. And many times I think it's because of selfishness on our part. We make decisions based on what we think is best for ourselves rather than what is best for the country. And that's not good, because for electoral politics, it's about serving your citizens and serving the country. And so, if you thought that Gary Johnson was the best person for that, well, it seems like your radar was a bit off there, because not only was he not good for the average citizens and that they didn't vote for him in enough numbers to make a difference, but he also didn't serve the libertarian cause. So I ran because even if the general public didn't choose me or didn't vote for me in great numbers, at a minimum I would be benefiting the libertarian movement. And that's really what needs to be happening with our libertarian candidates, is that if they don't have a chance to win, if the chances are slim, then they should be at least advancing the cause of the liberty movement.
Right. So what is it that makes you popular with the Muggles and not so popular with libertarians?
It's a good question. I think if I had to really try and break that down, let me think about that for a second. Okay. I think it's probably my communication style. A lot of people called me the Donald Trump of the Libertarian Party, as if that was a bad thing, because Donald Trump has a way of communicating in simple little short phrases that it really rings hollow to libertarians. They don't like that, because they're the type of person to sit down and watch a 2-hour lecture about decentralizing monetary units of third world countries, and the average American doesn't do something like that. So if I want to talk about free banking or things like that, I'm going to have to explain it in a series of slogans that the American people can latch onto, so that we can actually progress our ideas. So it's sort of counterintuitive, because what works for libertarianism is not what libertarianism has been doing to sell their ideas. So I think normal people like me because I communicate in a way that is accessible, but some libertarians, they see that as selling out, watering down ideas, when really all you're doing is condensing ideas into simple ideas and slogans, or as some people call them, bumper stickers. But that's the path to success, and I won't back down from the libertarians who oppose me on that, just because I think the problem with libertarians is they like to think that they're smarter than everyone else, and they may be, but the problem with that is that if you have that attitude, then people are not going to like you. So when I come in and I try and reform the liberty movement to make it more effective, libertarians don't like that, because some libertarians actually do not want the Libertarian Party to be a platform to have real electoral success. They would some of it is because it's tactical, because they don't want a libertarian to preside over the decline and then be responsible for having to apologize for someone who would get elected and then not govern according to libertarian principles. We saw that in Nevada recently, where they had a state legislator, assemblyman, John Moore, who actually, as a libertarian, voted in favor of a large stadium out there at taxpayers' expense.
Oh my
so
goodness.
some of those concerns are founded, but some of them are not. And there is a kind of a hipster attitude, I think, sometimes amongst libertarians, which many of them are overwhelmingly very young, and there's a very strong attitude of, I want to be a libertarian before it was cool, and if everybody else is doing it, then it's not cool. So there's kind of there's a desire on libertarians to be countercultural rather than to take the ideas mainstream, which I completely reject.
Right. Well, you have quite a national following, and you've had endorsements or near endorsements when you were running. But in the presidential nomination process, will this help you in running in a more local race as U.S. Senator from Missouri, or are you going to have to change the flavor of your campaign to appeal specifically to Missouri voters?
I think you do have to appeal specifically to Missouri voters, and that's really that is an important part of campaigning. But having a national following is definitely in no way, shape, or form a bad thing. I mean, you have to look at it like this. I mean, Senator Rand Paul was not the establishment's pick. He was actually opposed severely by the establishment of his own party. I mean, he had never held elective office before, and so they told him he was unqualified, and they did everything they could to stop him. But the reason why Senator Paul was able to win was not just because of the Kentucky voters who did ultimately vote for him, but it was because of the fact that he had a national network, of course, provided to him by his father, and that national network was what provided him with the grassroots, the skills that he needed to, or the talent to get out the vote and to overcome the establishment in his state in order for him to get on the ballot. So if I were to run for Senate, having that national network would certainly be a big deal. And Missourians are pretty go along, get along people. They're not the type. They're not really the type. This super suspicious type of people who they don't like carpetbaggers. I know, but but if somebody had a national following like myself, I don't see Missourians as the type of people to resent that. As they say, Missouri loves company.
Right. So do you think what happened to Todd Akin when he was running against McCaskill and also Libertarian Jonathan Dine in 2012 could happen to you? I mean, he said something really stupid about rape. But I think the issue behind that loss was abortion. Don't you think so? How would you answer the question that lost him the election?
Well, first of all, I would never be in the business of telling someone that a rape was legitimate or not, and that is to me, I think, a tad egregious. But he wasn't the best campaigner either, and he was up against a very wily opponent. I mean, Claire McCaskill admitted in her book that she helped him win, that's who she wanted to run against. And I do not think that Senator Claire McCaskill would want to run against me, because my views as a libertarian can tend to be attractive to Democrats as well. So, while my libertarian views might be harmful in a primary, or might be difficult for me in a primary, they would definitely be helpful in a general election, because Todd Aiken's social conservatism was so rabid that it turned off Missouri voters who are blue, because Missouri may be a red state, but we have lots of urban areas that are Democrat strongholds. My hometown of Kansas City, it's Springfield, and where I went to university, and St. Louis. You've got to be able to win those voters as well. You've got to be able to get Democrats to vote for you rather than their own ticket. So that's really what Todd Aiken's problem was that he was unpalatable to anyone other than Republican voters.
So is your stance on abortion going to be that you'd like to defund Planned Parenthood and get the federal government out of the business of deciding about it?
Yes, I think that funding Planned Parenthood is in effect a form of corporate welfare, and I'm opposed to that in principle. So yes, I would oppose federal funding of Planned Parenthood. And I do think that these kinds of extremely personal decisions need to be handled at the state level, not at the federal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, speaking of Claire McCaskill deciding who her opponent is going to be, do you think she has the power to do that this time?
I don't honestly know. That's honestly something that I have to do a little bit more research on, because I read only parts of her book, and now it's sitting out on my end table now so I can finish it. But I don't know that she necessarily would. I think that Donald Trump, we live in the age of Donald Trump now. And, what's funny is that as horrible as what Todd Aiken said, compare it to any of the things that Donald Trump has said. But Missouri is not like the country, right? Missouri may not be ready to forgive those kinds of statements. But, it's sort of the wild, wild west of electoral politics these days in the age of Trump.
Well, yes, it's quite possible that Trump was chosen as the opponent the Democrats wanted.
Yeah.
But it didn't turn out the way they wanted.
Exactly, yeah.
So what do you think about the current controversy about Nick Sarwark, the Libertarian Party chair? He made some critical remarks about Ron Paul. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with Sarwark or with his detractors on this issue?
I sort of see both sides of the issue, and I really think it's much of a tempest in a teapot. I think probably what's happening is that too many people across the United States are cooped up inside because of the freezing cold weather, so they have nothing better to do, and they get bored and they want to argue on Facebook. But not Donald Trump, but Ron Paul has always, to me, been someone who's advocated for the principles of liberty. And when we're talking about the issue of states' rights, he was probably using states' rights as an example of federalism, but the problem is that in that terminology, I think it's a bit misleading. And what Nick Sarwark was attempting to do is something that I do frequently, and trying to explain to people that states do not have rights. States have powers, which is very important because only individuals have rights. If you think that a state has rights, that means that a state has a guarantee to something. And to me, that is sort of the antithesis of libertarianism. So I think that really what they were arguing is semantics, but people love drama, so I think that everyone was just looking for something to argue about. I can see both sides, and certainly it's not a good idea to criticize Ron Paul. If you're going to do something like that, you better be willing to take the heat. And if you're going to do something like that, I would probably not praise Bill Weld in the same interview.
Right. Yeah, no, I know that you yourself at one point were critical publicly of Ron Paul with regard to, was it his defense policy? And
it was in regards to some information that was published from his institute that questioned whether or not the attacks of the Charlie Hebdo attacks were a false flag.
Mm-hmm. So in that sense, do you feel a certain amount of sympathy for Nick Sarwark being attacked?
I do. I think there's a bit of a cult of personality, and the problem was with the Liberty Movement in 2008 and 2012 was that we were mostly unified behind Ron Paul, and so everyone had a sense of purpose. It was much more of a kumbaya. But then, as Ron Paul has stepped down or faded from the national stage, people feel a little bit lost, and a lot of people in the Liberty Movement don't like me, and a lot of people in the Liberty Movement don't like Ron Paul, and I think that's fine, but I think that really what's occurring is that we're sort of seeing a shift and a realignment in American politics right now, specifically the Liberty Movement, where people are trying to find leaders that can unify almost all of us. But again, like libertarians always say, it's a bit like herding cats.
Mm-hmm. So to me, one of the big questions with regard to your campaign here in Missouri is how will you be able to win a majority for the Senate as a professed atheist in the Republican Party?
Well, what's funny is that the libertarians tend to be, many of them, socially liberal rather than social conservatives, and social conservatives tend to be overwhelmingly religious. But people like I did an interview with Glenn Beck, and we had a conversation about it, and he didn't have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, I would say 9 times out of 10, the social conservatives had absolutely no problem with that, and it was because, as a libertarian, I was pretty much the only person who was defending religious liberty in the presidential debates. And so I think that social conservatives looked at me and said, hey, here's a young man who doesn't share our belief system, but who will defend our belief system. And I think that that's really what's important. I hear so many evangelicals telling me all the time, and they say they're praying for me, which I gladly accept and I'm grateful for. And what they say is they like an honest agnostic over a lying Christian, right? So I think that people are starting to be a little bit. I think people like having someone tell them the truth about what they really believe. And you know what? I have experienced much more bigotry in the libertarian movement against the religious than I have seen the other way around. And that is a problem because I believe that social conservatives make up almost 50% of the liberty movement, and a lot more religious people would be willing to call themselves libertarians if there was not so much faceless bigotry against them. And I have my problems with organized religion. Certainly, I think that Islam, it has undergone a dangerous transformation in the last 100 years, and those are issues that we can discuss in regards to national security. But in terms of like religious liberty in the United States, that is sacrosanct. And to me, I think that I don't think that the Missouri voters are going to look at or are going to listen to what I have to say and think this is someone who wants to take my religious freedom away. As a matter of fact, I think the opposite, because I've been nothing but gone on record in defending them. And again, what would you rather have, an honest agnostic or a lying Christian? I think that people probably prefer someone who's honest.
Yes, I think so. So now that you're campaigning more locally, is there any chance that you will make a campaign stop in Texas County, Missouri, where I live? Or are you still going to be sticking to the high population urban areas because of what the 17th Amendment did to change the Constitution and to make the senatorial office, which used to be elected by the state legislature, and now it's a popular vote? So
well, luckily I live in a high population area in Kansas City, so it'd be pretty easy for me to do campaign events here in my home territory. But I think most of the votes that would come would probably, for someone like myself, would come from the rural areas. And that's probably where I'll have to devote most of my time. But, what the best part of Missouri is that all of the urban areas that you have are surrounded by suburban areas, rural areas. So, I love Missouri. I'm honestly pretty excited to get a chance to go out and hang out in Branson and Springfield area again. And I don't think I've ever been to the Boot Heel. I've been almost all over the entire state of Missouri. But this will be if I decide to run, this will be a great opportunity to finally get down there and visit the Boot Heel, which I've always wanted to do. And I think that the rural voters are going to be my best base of support should I decide to run.
Okay, very good. So we're hoping to see you in this area too.
Great.
Thanks so much for talking to me, and I hope we find out that you do run.
Thank you. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.